Good afternoon, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good day and God bless you. Let's get into the news. And on the heels of Elon Musk burning the communist regime, stenographers who parade around as reporters have finally their chickens have come home to roost. That's right, with a plethora of them being banned over the last couple of days. Now some are actually being banned on their own networks for being a commie mouthpiece for being the regime, mouthpiece for making up lies. It's a long time coming. These reporters are the scum of the earth who continue to parade and think they are above every average individual. They can no rules apply to them, they can do whatever they want. While Elon Musk has quickly reminded them they cannot. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look what we have here. That's right, NBC News at death indefinitely bars committed leftist Ben Collins, who cheered for this island team conservatives from covering Elon Musk and Twitter. That's right, Ben Collins, who is another committed leftist and NBC contributor. This Twitter account is awash with anti-conservative tack. He openly cheers to silencing of opposite voices in America today, and in 2019 he gleefully celebrated Facebook's efforts to eliminate conservative voices. That's right. NBC has had enough of his sneering coverage of Elon Musk and Twitter, and has indefinitely barred him from reporting on Musk or Twitter. NBC News has indefinitely barred tech reporter Ben Collins from covering Elon Musk and Twitter for repeatedly mocking the Mughal mogul on the social media site. It was reported on Friday Collins, who was told earlier this month by higher-ups at 30 Rock that his tweets blasting Musk were not editorial appropriate. According to the news site SEM for Collins, who's been yanked off the air from NBC and MSNBC but remains on staff. He has been actively tweeting and retweeting developments related to Musk's controversial decision. Wasn't controversial to ban the accounts of several left-wing leaning journalists who were critical of IT management on the social media side. No, they were actually barred because of doxing. That's what they were barred for. Even though they ran over to their stupid out app Mastodon and said, "Oops, because I was criticizing Elon." No, it wasn't. It was because you were doxing. Elon, and doxing is against a rule to has been for the creation of Twitter. You're not allowed to do it. And leftists have gotten away with it because, of course, they've had leftists in charge. And they have allowed to doxing people like Lifta TikTok, and other the Supreme Court justices run rampant on Twitter at no Antifa used to. And now Elon is getting serious with it, and the left-wing reporters cannot imagine why they're being targeted. Now, you could just mean you're just playing on even field now. The playing field has been leveled. And now you're on even ground with the people that you absolutely hate, and you can't stand it. You'll know how to operate. And this type of sphere you'll know how to operate. When the rules applied the same to everyone. You cannot stand it because you're so used to having the referees always work in your favor. That is how the left is operate. A source close to the situation told the Post that Collins, who's had more than 380,000 Twitter followers, was repeatedly warned by management and NBC News over opinion tweets about Musk. The source said, Collins was remained of the company's journalistic guidelines at bars reporters from expressing their personal views on topics they're assigned to cover anyway. Hopefully that guy will be gone for a while. Cannot stand Ben Collins. He is a rageous leftist who is just a mouthpiece of the regime, is tasked to continue to peddle the narratives no matter what. He is not a tech reporter. He just happens to be on tech, reporting on tech stuff. But he's not really reporting, he is pushing the narrative by the regime. And that's where he's a useful idiot being used. And then, this is some big news. I've been patiently waiting. I know a lot of people are making all kinds of different videos, and making all kinds of claims with the whole Kari Lake versus Katie Hobbs lawsuit situation and what's going on. But I've been waiting very patiently for development before I chime into the current situation. And well, today, we certainly have a developmental. Tell you that one. This is an absolutely massive legal victory for the American people. Because finally, there's at least a little bit, albeit a small amount, there's still some transparency to be provided to the voter base. Now, if you really think about it, when you're voting, you cast your ballot, and you throw it into the ether, and you have absolutely no idea what's really going on after you've dropped it in that box. Well, I think that's the wrong standard. Not only do I think that there should be ballot tracking, which in a lot of cases there is, to a certain extent, there should be a recorded log of chain of custody for every single one. And it seems as though thanks to this lawsuit, there might be a move towards that direction, albeit a little bit late. And of course, more in the aftermath. We're finally getting access, and this goes to show how incredible Kari Lake is, just how much a fighter she is. We've got some good news to cover out of the state of Arizona today. We still want to keep our expectations in check. Alright folks, so this can only be described as a major victory for Kari Lake against Katie Hobbs. Judge officially rules that Republican Kari Lake has the right to inspect ballots in lawsuit. The judge has handed down a portion of a ruling for Kari Lake's lawsuit against Katie Hobbs. Lake has asked for the court to inspect 50 random Election Day ballots from 6 voting locations in Maricopa County and 50 ballots that were marked spoiled on Election Day. She then asked the judge if her representative would be allowed to copy and photograph the inspected ballots. Judge Peter A. Thompson ruled on Friday night that Lake has the right to inspect these 150 ballots, but her representative can't copy and photograph of the inspection is set to begin on Tuesday morning. Lake's lawyer previously said that the number of illegal votes cast in the election exceeded the vote margin between Lake and Hobbs. Now the last sentence of the article I'll have to ignore because of YouTube's twos, but this is a victory into transparency. Does it go far enough? Absolutely not. But it's gonna give us some key insights into the ballot breakdown. And for some reason, Katie Hobbs' team was fighting vehemently to restrict access to these ballots, even if it's just 150. The question is, why were they fighting so hard to deny the American voter and the Arizona voter what I view as basic transparency? I mean, let's talk about an honest democracy for a second. Democrats are always going on and on virtue signaling. But when it really comes to it, and when the American people have questions, Democrats are the first people to fight that those questions remain unanswered. That seems dishonest. And this discussion has been dishonest from the start. You know, there's a whole lot of claims. Some of them seem a little ridiculous. Some of them are valid questions, yet every single time anything is brought up, it's never countered by the Democrat side with facts, reasoned details. It's "you're crazy. You're deranged. You're a lunatic. This is a conspiracy theorist. You're a threat to democracy, and your voice should be stifled." That is the response every single time, but the response should be to the benefit of the American people on both sides, basic transparency, and this is the first step towards that. It doesn't go far enough, because 150 ballots is a pretty damn small sample nonetheless. But if you ask me, I mean, at this point, with all the technology that we have, there should be a log and a connection for every single vote. I don't think that's too much to ask. In fact, it's probably not even all that complicated to implement. And the only proper way to implement such a system would be on the blockchain to create a fully transparent, fully decentralized system that logs and registers each and every single citizen in the ballot that they cast by a unique identifier code, meaning every single one can be absolutely confirmed as a lawful individual participating in democracy. And you can have a connection which can then be audited. It's nearly impossible to conduct a proper audit within the current framework or the current system because that chain of custody is hard to follow. And there's hundreds of thousands if not millions of ballots, whether it's county-wide or statewide, and it's nearly impossible to painstakingly identify each and every single one, then who the individual behind that ballot is and whether or not the process was conducted effectively. Or, of course, lawfully. You know, there needs to be some sort of reform here that gives people trust back into the system. That's the most important thing. To preserving democracy, if the Democrats really cared about got that outside of their political rhetoric buzzword nonsense. If they really cared about democracy, then they would be advocating for absolute full transparency to know unequivocally that the system is totally legitimate. Democrats claim that the current system cannot and should not be questioned. It is without fault. But we have seen time and time again. I mean, just take a look at Philadelphia that there's plenty of fault. There's a whole lot more fault than I think most people should be comfortable with. And I don't understand why there's not a bipartisan, absolutely unanimous view to have more transparency and more trust in the system to make the end results actually undeniable, provable, trackable, and maybe most importantly, viewable for the American people, the citizens. The voter deserve the right to be able to audit, to be able to view everything with absolute undeniable transparency, just basic open source philosophy. And, you know, it comes back to the whole concept of being ideologically consistent. Democrats talk a big game when it comes to democracy, preserving democracy, the integrity of democracy. Well, If they truly cared about that, then they should support these kinds of measures. Democrats, of course, famously or infamously, back in the 2016 election, rejected the results and claimed that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president. #Not my president, Putin's puppet. He was a Manchurian candidate that was illegitimate and placed there by Vladimir Putin, the Kremlin, the KGB. That's essentially what they told you. Well, I pretty much guarantee you that if we flashback or if we took a time machine back to 2016, and you had Democrat leaders who were arguing for a reform of the system that would create absolute total transparency into the system that elected Donald Trump, I guarantee you without a doubt that Democrats would support it across the board. They support it when it benefits them. But of course, when the questions go the other way, they shut it down, just like tyrants do. And this is the first step, finally, at least a little bit of legal precedent that allows the challenging side to have transparency into the ballots cast. While limited to only 150 ballots is a damn start, it should all be made public, each and every single one, at least in my opinion, with some sort of way to preserve anonymity. But a system that creates a unique code for each and every single one that can be traced to an individual for auditing purposes. Because if faith is not restored quickly, the outcome, I believe, is going to be quite dangerous. Democrats think they're saving the world, the savior complex that we constantly see. But if you really think about it, this dynamic that they're creating, this very toxic environment, and the lack of trust that it's creating, in my opinion, is the type of seed that leads to the collapse of an empire, and anybody advocating against transparency is essentially playing into the hands of our worst enemies. This should be a bipartisan issue. And of course, in respect to the current lawsuit playing out, we'll have to see exactly what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, give me your thoughts below. And hit subscribe right now. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching the video.